You understand English. You can watch movies. You can listen to podcasts. You can even read almost everything. But when it's your turn to speak, your mind goes blank. Suddenly, you forget simple words. Your heart starts racing. And the sentence you were about to say disappears. You think in your language, then try to translate, and by the time you're ready, the moment is gone. If this feels like you, then listen carefully, because the problem is not your English. And today, I'm going to show you exactly why this happens and how to fix it fast. 1. You don't have a speaking problem. Let's be honest for a moment. You think your problem is speaking. You believe something is wrong with your ability. You feel like maybe you're just not good at English. But that's not true. Because if you were truly bad at English, you wouldn't understand it. You wouldn't be able to follow conversations. You wouldn't recognize words, phrases, or meaning. And yet, you do. So what's really happening? The moment you try to speak, your brain goes into overload. You start thinking, what is the correct word? Is this grammar right? How do I say this perfectly? What if I make a mistake? And suddenly, instead of speaking naturally, you are trying to perform. You are building sentences piece by piece, translating from your native language, checking grammar rules in your head, and at the same time, worrying about how you sound. This is not speaking. This is mental pressure. Imagine trying to run while solving a math problem at the same time. That's exactly what you are doing when you try to speak English like this. Your brain is not failing you. It's overwhelmed because speaking is supposed to be automatic, fast, natural, unconscious, but you've turned it into a slow, controlled, stressful process. And that's why you freeze. Not because you don't know English, but because you are thinking too much while trying to speak it. This is the truth most people never realize. Fluent speakers are not smarter than you. They are not using more grammar than you. They are not translating faster than you. They are not translating at all. They are not trying to be perfect. They are simply expressing ideas with whatever English they have. And that is the shift you need to make. Right now, your focus is, say it correctly. But it should be, say it clearly. Right now, you are trying to impress. But you should be trying to communicate. And here's the most important part. Fluency does not come from thinking about language. It comes from using language. The more you try to control every word, the more you block yourself. The more you relax and allow simple sentences, the more you unlock your speech. So no, you don't have a speaking problem. You have a thinking problem. And once you fix that, speaking will start to feel natural. 2. Stop translating in your head. This is the habit that is silently destroying your fluency. Translation. It feels helpful. It feels safe. It feels like you are doing the right thing. But it's the exact reason you can't speak. Here's what happens when you try to talk. First, you think in your native language. Then you search for English words. Then you try to arrange them correctly. Then you check the grammar. Then you speak. By the time you reach the last step, the moment is gone. The conversation has already moved on. Your confidence drops, and your brain freezes again. This is not communication. This is delay. And the worst part is, translation creates dependency. You become stuck between two languages. You cannot think freely in either one when speaking English. Fluent speakers don't go through this process. They don't build sentences step by step. They don't translate in their heads. They think directly in English. That's why they speak faster. That's why they sound natural. That's why they don't panic. Now here's the truth you need to accept. You will never become fluent if you keep translating. Never. Because real conversations don't give you time to translate. They require instant response, instant understanding, instant expression. Icon translation cannot keep up with that speed. So what should you do instead? You must train your brain to connect ideas directly to English words, not through your native language, directly. Start small. Don't try to think complex thoughts. Use simple, real-life sentences. I am tired. I am hungry. I like this. I don't understand. At first, it will feel strange. Your brain will try to go back to your native language. That's normal. But every time you resist that habit, you are rewiring your brain. Every small sentence you think in English, every moment you stop translating, you are building fluency, slowly, quietly, powerfully. And one day, something incredible will happen. You will speak. Without translating, without pausing, without fear. And in that moment, you will realize fluency was never about knowing more words. It was about thinking differently. 3. Simple English is powerful English. One of the biggest mistakes you're making is this. You think fluency means using big words, complex grammar, and perfect sentences. So when you try to speak, you don't say what's easy. You search for what sounds impressive. And that's exactly where everything breaks. You pause, you hesitate, you lose your flow, because your brain is trying to do too much. Here's the truth you need to understand. Fluent speakers don't use difficult English all the time. They use simple English. Very well. They don't focus on sounding smart. They focus on being clear. But you've trained yourself to believe that simple sentences are not enough. So instead of saying, I think this is good, you try to say something like, I believe this is an excellent and beneficial option. And suddenly you get stuck. You forget words, you doubt your grammar, you stop speaking. Not because you don't know English, but because you made it harder than it needs to be. Simple English gives you speed. Simple English gives you confidence. Simple English keeps the conversation moving. And that's what fluency really is, not perfection, not complexity. Flow. The ability to keep speaking without stopping. Let me show you something powerful. A fluent speaker might say, I went there yesterday. It was nice. I enjoyed it. Very simple, but smooth, natural, confident. Now compare that with someone who is struggling. Yesterday I was going. I went, and it was very good. I think the difference is not knowledge. The difference is simplicity. One person keeps it easy. The other tries to be perfect, and perfection destroys fluency. So from today, change your approach. Stop asking, how can I say this perfectly? Start asking, how can I say this simply? Use the words you already know. Use short sentences. Speak clearly, even if it feels basic, because basic English, spoken confidently, is far more powerful than advanced English, spoken with fear. And once you master simple English, fluency will follow naturally. 4. Your brain needs repetition. You already understand a lot of English, so why can't you speak it? Because understanding is passive. Speaking is active. And active skills are built through repetition. Think about it. You've listened to English for hours. Videos, podcasts, conversations. That's why your brain recognizes words so easily. But how many times have you actually spoken? Not in your head. Not silently. Out loud. That's where the gap is. Your brain has learned to receive English, but it has not been trained to produce it. And production requires practice, not once, not sometimes. Repeatedly, again and again. Because every time you speak, something important happens. Your brain strengthens connections. Your mouth gets used to the sounds. Your confidence grows, even if slowly. At first, it will feel uncomfortable. You will pause. You will repeat yourself. You will make mistakes. That's not failure, that's training. The same way a muscle grows with repeated movement, your speaking ability grows with repeated use. Without repetition, nothing changes. You can watch 100 videos. You can learn 1,000 words. But if you don't speak, your fluency will stay locked inside you. And here's the truth most people ignore. You don't need more information. You need more repetition. Instead of learning something new every day, try using the same simple sentences again and again. Say them out loud. Repeat them until they feel natural. Until you don't have to think anymore. Because that's the goal. Not just to know English, but to use it automatically. Repetition turns effort into habit, and habit turns speaking into something natural. So if you want to fix your speaking, don't just learn more, repeat more every single day. 5. Speak alone. Every day. This might sound strange at first. Talking to yourself. But this is one of the most powerful things you can do to fix your speaking. Because your biggest problem is not English, it's pressure. The moment you speak in front of others, you feel watched, you feel judged, you start thinking too much, and then you stop. But when you're alone, something changes. There is no pressure, no fear, no one to impress, just you and your voice. And that's where real progress begins. When you speak alone, you give yourself permission to be imperfect. You don't worry about grammar. You don't panic about mistakes. You don't freeze. You just speak. And that freedom is exactly what you need. Because fluency is not built in stressful moments. It is built in safe, consistent practice. Start simple. Talk about your day. Say what you're doing. I am sitting. I am watching this video. I feel tired today. Then go a little further. Ask yourself questions. What did I do today? What will I do tomorrow? What do I want? And answer them out loud. Yes, out loud, not in your head. Because speaking in your mind is not the same as speaking with your mouth. Your brain needs to hear your voice. Your mouth needs to form the words. That's how fluency develops. Yeah? At first it may feel awkward. You might feel silly. But that feeling is temporary. What matters is consistency. 5 minutes a day, 10 minutes a day. It doesn't matter how long. What matters is that you do it every day. Because every time you speak alone, you are building confidence. And confidence is what you take into real conversations. One day, when you speak to someone, you won't feel stuck anymore. Because you've already practiced, not once, but many times. In private, where growth truly happens. 6. Mistakes are your shortcut. This is the fear that's been holding you back the most, making mistakes. You don't speak, not because you don't know what to say, but because you're afraid of saying it wrong. You hesitate, you stop yourself, you stay silent, and every time you choose silence, you delay your progress. Here's the truth you need to hear. Mistakes are not your problem. Avoiding mistakes is your problem. Because when you avoid mistakes, you avoid speaking. And when you avoid speaking, you avoid improvement. It becomes a cycle. You don't speak, you don't improve, you feel worse, you avoid speaking again. But fluent speakers didn't become fluent by being perfect. They became fluent by being wrong. Many times. They said things incorrectly. They used the wrong words. They made grammar mistakes. But they kept going, and that's why they improved. Every mistake gave them feedback. Every mistake showed them what to fix. Every mistake made them better. Mistakes are not failures. They are corrections in progress. Think about a child learning to speak. Do they wait until they are perfect? No, they speak badly. They repeat words. They say things wrong. And slowly, they improve. That's exactly how language works. But you are trying to skip this stage. You want to speak perfectly from the beginning, and that's why you're stuck. Because perfection is not the starting point. It's the result. So from today, change your mindset. Don't try to avoid mistakes. Expect them, accept them, even welcome them. Because every time you make a mistake and continue speaking, you are moving forward. And every time you stay silent to avoid a mistake, you are staying exactly where you are. So ask yourself, do you want to sound perfect? Or do you want to become fluent? Because you can't have both at the beginning. Choose fluency, choose action, choose progress, and let your mistakes guide you there. 7. You're waiting to be perfect. This is one of the most dangerous habits you have. You are waiting. Waiting until your grammar is perfect. Waiting until your vocabulary is strong. Waiting until you feel confident enough. And until that moment comes, you don't speak. You tell yourself, I will start speaking when I'm ready. But here's the truth you need to accept. You will never feel ready, because confidence does not come before action. It comes after. Right now, you believe that fluency is something you achieve first, and then you start speaking. But it's the opposite. You speak first, you struggle, you improve, and only then, you become fluent. The problem is not your English. The problem is your mindset. You have created a condition in your mind, I must be perfect before I speak. And that condition is stopping you from even starting. Think about it. Every time you want to say something, your brain asks, is this correct? If the answer is not 100% yes, you stop. You stay silent. You let the moment pass, and that moment never comes back. This is how opportunities disappear. Not because you didn't know English, but because you didn't allow yourself to use it. Perfection creates pressure, and pressure creates fear, and fear creates silence. Like that's the cycle you are stuck in. Now let's break it. Ask yourself this. Do you really need perfect English to communicate? No. You need understandable English. You need clear ideas. You need the courage to speak, even if it's not perfect. Because communication is not about perfection. It's about connection. If someone understands you, you have succeeded. Even if your grammar is not perfect. Even if your sentence is not beautiful, you spoke. And that is progress. Fluent speakers don't wait for perfect sentences. They say what they can with what they have. And that's why they improve faster. Because they practice in real time. They don't pause their growth, but you are pausing yours. You are holding yourself back. Not because you lack ability, but because you are trying to protect yourself from mistakes. And in doing so, you are also protecting yourself from improvement. Let that sink in. The thing you think is helping you is actually slowing you down. So what should you do instead? Change your rule. From today, your rule is not, I will speak when it's perfect. Your new rule is, I will speak even if it's imperfect. Say the sentence, even if it's broken, even if it's simple, even if you're unsure, because every time you speak, you are training your brain. You are building speed, you are building confidence, you are building fluency, and slowly something powerful will happen. Your sentences will become smoother, your pauses will become shorter, your confidence will grow, not because you waited, but because you acted. Perfection is not your starting point. It is your destination, and the only way to reach it is to move forward without it. So stop waiting. Stop preparing forever. Hey, stop telling yourself not yet, because not yet can easily become never. Start now. Speak now. Even if it's not perfect, especially if it's not perfect, because that's exactly where real growth begins. 8. You need speaking triggers. One of the biggest reasons you don't speak English is not because you can't. It's because nothing is pushing you to. There is no urgency, no habit, no system. So your speaking depends on mood. Some days you feel motivated. Most days you don't. And when motivation disappears, speaking disappears with it. That's the problem. You are relying on feelings instead of structure. And feelings are unreliable. They change every day. But fluency is not built on random effort. It is built on consistent action. And consistent action needs triggers. And a trigger is something that tells your brain, now it's time to speak. Without that signal, your brain will always choose the easier option. Silence, comfort, avoidance. So if you want to fix your speaking, you must create these triggers, not once, not occasionally, every single day. Because repetition without a trigger becomes inconsistent. And inconsistency destroys progress. Let's make this real. Right now, your day probably looks like this. You watch English videos, you listen, you understand. But you don't speak, because nothing tells you to. There is no moment in your day where speaking becomes automatic. So it never happens. Now imagine this instead. Every morning after you wake up, you speak for 5 minutes. Every time you finish watching a video, you summarize it out loud. Yeah, every night before sleeping, you talk about your day in English. These are triggers. They remove the need to think. You don't ask, should I speak today? You already know, because it's part of your routine. And once something becomes a routine, it becomes natural. This is how fluent speakers are built, not through random bursts of motivation, but through daily repeated habits. Now here's something even more important. Your triggers must be simple. If they are too big, you will avoid them. If you say, I will speak for 1 hour every day, you might do it once. Then you stop. But if you say, I will speak for 5 minutes after breakfast, you can do that every day. And that's what matters, because 5 minutes daily is more powerful than 1 hour once a week. Consistency beats intensity. Every time. Also, your triggers should be connected to things you already do. This makes them easier to follow. For example, after brushing your teeth, speak for 2 minutes. After watching a video, repeat what you learned. While walking, describe what you see. You are not adding something new. You are attaching speaking to your existing life. And that's how habits stick. Now let's talk about something deeper. Triggers don't just build habits. They remove excuses. When you don't have a system, your brain says, I'll do it later. I'm tired. Not today. But when you have a trigger, there is no decision. There is only action. And that's powerful. Because the less you rely on decisions, the more consistent you become. And consistency is what transforms you. At first, it may feel forced. You might not enjoy it. You might forget sometimes. That's okay. What matters is that you return to it again and again. Because over time, something changes. Speaking stops feeling like a task. It starts feeling normal, automatic, part of who you are. And one day, you won't need triggers anymore. Because speaking English will no longer be something you try to do. It will be something you naturally do. But until you reach that point, you need structure, you need discipline, you need triggers. So don't wait for motivation. Don't wait for the perfect time. Create your system, choose your triggers, and start today. Because fluency is not built in moments of inspiration. It is built in moments of consistency. And those moments begin with a simple decision. When will you speak? Every day? 9. Think in English. Start small. This is the shift that changes everything. Not learning more words. Not studying more grammar. Thinking in English. Because right now your process looks like this. You think in your native language. Then you translate into English. Then you speak. And every step slows you down. It creates delay. It creates doubt. It creates hesitation. That's why even simple sentences feel difficult. Not because they are hard, but because your process is slow. Now imagine removing one step. No translation. Just thinking directly in English and speaking. Suddenly, everything becomes faster, more natural, more fluid. That's how fluent speakers operate. They don't convert thoughts, they express them instantly. But here's where most people go wrong. They try to think in English using complex ideas, long sentences, advanced vocabulary, perfect grammar, and they fail. And then they say, I can't think in English. But that's not true. You're just starting too big. Thinking in English is a skill, and like every skill, it must start small. Very small. Start with simple thoughts. The kind of thoughts you already have every day. I am tired. I am hungry. I like this. This is good. I don't understand. These are not advanced sentences, but they are powerful because they train your brain to connect ideas directly to English, without translation, without delay. At first, it will feel uncomfortable. Your brain will try to go back to your native language. It will feel easier, faster, more natural. That's normal, because that's what your brain is used to. But every time you stop translating and force yourself to think in simple English, you are building a new habit, a new pathway in your mind. And slowly, that pathway becomes stronger. Now let's go deeper. Thinking in English is not just about sentences, it's about awareness. You must become conscious of your thoughts. Notice what you are thinking throughout the day, Then try to express those thoughts in English. If you are walking, say, I am walking. The weather is nice. I see a car. If you are eating, say, this is good. I like this food. I want more. You are not trying to impress anyone. You are training your brain. This is internal practice, but it creates external results because the more you think in English, the less you need to translate when you speak, and that changes everything. Your speaking becomes faster. Your pauses become shorter. Your confidence grows. Because now you're not searching for words. They are already there, last connected to your thoughts. Now here's something important. Don't worry about grammar in the beginning. Focus on expression. Even if your sentence is not perfect, it's okay. What matters is that you are thinking in English, because fluency is not built on perfection. It is built on speed and connection, the ability to move from thought to speech instantly. And that only happens when you stop translating. So be patient with yourself. This is not an overnight change. It takes time, it takes repetition, it takes awareness. But if you practice this daily, even for a few minutes, you will notice something powerful. You will start thinking in English without trying. And when that happens, speaking will no longer feel like a struggle. It will feel natural, effortless, automatic, because you are no longer converting your thoughts. You are living them in English. So start small, stay consistent, and train your mind to think differently. Because the moment you truly begin to think in English is the moment your fluency begins. 10. Use what you already know. This is one of the most powerful truths you need to understand. You already know enough English to start speaking, but you don't believe it. So instead of using what you know, you keep searching for more words, more grammar, more lessons, more videos. You think, when I learn more, then I will speak. But that moment never comes, because the more you learn, the more you realize what you don't know, and that creates hesitation. You feel unprepared, incomplete, not ready. So you delay speaking again. This is the trap. You are stuck in learning mode. Not because you need it, but because it feels safer than speaking. Learning is comfortable. There's no risk, no judgment, no mistakes. But speaking is different. It exposes you, it challenges you, and that's why you avoid it. But here's the truth that will change everything. Fluency does not come from learning more. It comes from using more. Right now, you already have a base. You know common words. You understand basic sentences. You recognize everyday expressions. That's enough. More than enough to start speaking, but you're not using it. And unused knowledge disappears. It becomes passive, hidden, unavailable when you need it most. That's why when you try to speak, you feel like you know nothing. Not because you don't know, but because you haven't practiced using what you know. Think about this. If you learn 100 new words, but never use them, will they help you speak? No. But if you use 20 simple words every day, will your speaking improve? Yes, because usage creates memory. Usage creates speed. Usage creates confidence. And confidence is what unlocks fluency. You don't need more information, you need more application. Let's make this practical. Take the words you already know. Simple words like go, eat, like, want, need, make, see, think. Now build sentences with them. I want to eat. I like this. I need help. I think it's good. I will go there. I see you. These are not advanced sentences, but they are real, they are useful, they are enough to communicate. And communication is your goal, not perfection, not complexity. Connection. Now here's something important. Stop comparing yourself to advanced speakers. They didn't start there. They built their fluency step by step, using simple English, repeating it, expanding it. Over time, you are trying to jump ahead, and that's why you feel stuck. Because you are ignoring the level you are at, and trying to perform at a level you haven't built yet. So instead of asking, what more should I learn? Start asking, what can I say with what I already know? This question changes everything. It shifts your focus from learning to using, from consuming to creating, from passive to active. And that's where real progress happens. Also, understand this. When you use simple English repeatedly, your brain becomes faster, your sentences become smoother, your confidence grows. And naturally, you start adding more words, more expressions, more complexity, without forcing it, without stress. Because growth becomes natural, not pressured. Now let's talk about a hidden problem. You underestimate your knowledge. You think, my English is basic. But basic English used well is powerful. It allows you to express ideas, ask questions, share thoughts. And that's what speaking is. You don't need perfect vocabulary. You need usable vocabulary, words that come quickly, sentences that flow easily. And that only happens when you use them again and again. So stop collecting information. Start using it, even if it feels small, even if it feels simple, even if it feels repetitive. Because repetition is what turns knowledge into skill, and skill is what creates fluency. From today, make a decision. Use what you know every day, in real sentences, out loud, without waiting. Because the truth is, you are not as far as you think. You are closer than you believe. You don't need more English. You need to trust and use the English you already have. And once you do that, everything begins to change. Your speaking becomes easier. Your thoughts become clearer. Your confidence becomes stronger. Not because you learned more but because you finally started using what was already inside you. 11. Speed comes from confidence. This is one of the biggest misunderstandings about fluency. You think fluent speakers talk fast, and that's why they sound confident. But the truth is the opposite. They sound fast because they are confident. Speed is not the cause, it's the result. Right now, when you speak English, you feel slow. You pause. You hesitate. You search for words. And because of that, you start thinking, I need to speak faster. So you push yourself. Yeah, you try to speak quickly. You rush your sentences. And what happens? You make more mistakes. You feel more pressure. You lose control. And your confidence drops even more. This is the trap. You're trying to fix the wrong thing. Your problem is not speed. Your problem is confidence. Because when you are confident, you don't panic, you don't overthink, you don't freeze, you trust yourself. And that trust allows your brain to work naturally. Words come easier, sentences flow better, pauses become shorter, and as a result, you sound faster. Not because you forced it, but because you removed the fear. Let's break this down. When you lack confidence, your brain goes into protection mode. It starts asking questions. Is this correct? What if I make a mistake? What will they think of me? And these thoughts slow you down. They interrupt your flow. They create hesitation. So even if you know the sentence, you can't say it smoothly. Now imagine the opposite. You feel relaxed. You accept that mistakes are okay. You focus on communication, not perfection. Suddenly, your brain is free. There is no pressure, no fear, no constant checking. And when that happens, your speaking becomes natural. This is why confident speakers sound fluent. Not because they know more English, but because they are not afraid to use it. Now, here's something important you need to understand. Confidence is not something you wait for. It is something you build, and you build it through action. Every time you speak, even imperfectly, you are telling your brain, it's okay. It's safe. I can do this. And slowly that message becomes stronger. I'll say, but if you keep waiting to feel confident before speaking, you will stay stuck. Because confidence does not come first. Action comes first. Confidence follows. So instead of asking, how can I speak faster? Ask, how can I feel more comfortable while speaking? Slow down. Yes. Slow down. Speak clearly. Take your time. Use simple sentences. Don't rush. Because when you remove the pressure to be fast, you create space for confidence to grow. And when confidence grows, Speed comes naturally. Now let's go deeper. Confidence is built through small wins, not big moments. You don't suddenly become confident in one day. You become confident step by step. Every time you complete a sentence, express an idea, continue speaking without stopping, that's a win. And those wins add up. They change how you see yourself. Must take from I can't speak English to I can speak, maybe not perfectly, but I can. And that belief is powerful because once you believe you can speak, you start speaking more. And the more you speak, the better you become. It's a cycle, a positive one. But you have to start it. Now let's talk about something that blocks confidence. Comparison. You compare yourself to fluent speakers, native speakers, advanced learners, and you think, I'm too slow. I'm not good enough. I'll never sound like them. And that destroys your confidence because you are measuring yourself against a level you haven't reached yet. Instead, compare yourself to your past. Are you better than before? Can you say more than you could last week? Are your sentences slightly smoother? That's what matters. Progress, not perfection, based because confidence grows when you see improvement, not when you chase impossible standards. Also remember this, even fluent speakers pause sometimes. Even native speakers make mistakes, but they don't let that stop them. They continue. That's confidence, not perfection. Continuity, the ability to keep going, even when things are not perfect. And that's what you need to develop. So from today, stop chasing speed. Stop forcing yourself to sound fluent. Instead, focus on comfort. Focus on clarity. Focus on continuing your sentence, even if it's not perfect. Because when you feel comfortable speaking, everything else will follow. Your pauses will shrink. Your words will come faster. Your speech will become smoother. And one day, without even realizing it, you will sound fluent. Not because you tried to speak fast, but because you finally felt confident enough to speak freely. So, don't rush. Don't force it. Build your confidence, one sentence at a time, and let speed come as a natural result. 12. Consistency beats everything. This is the final lesson, and the most important one. Because everything you've learned so far, thinking in English, stopping translation, speaking simply, practicing daily, none of it will work if you are not consistent. Consistency is what turns effort into results. Without it, nothing lasts. You can feel motivated today. You can practice for 1 hour. You can promise yourself that you will improve. But if you stop tomorrow, you go back to where you started. This is the hidden reason why most people fail. Not because they are not smart, not because they don't understand English. Yeah, but because they are inconsistent. They start strong, and then they stop. They practice for a few days, and then they disappear. They wait for motivation again. And the cycle repeats. But fluency doesn't work like that. It's not built in bursts, it's built in repetition. Daily repetition. Small actions. Done again and again. Let's be clear. You don't need to study for hours every day. You don't need to learn hundreds of new words. You don't need a perfect routine. What you need is to show up every single day, even if it's just 10 minutes, even if you feel tired, even if you don't feel like it. Because consistency is not about doing a lot. It's about doing something regularly. And over time, that something becomes powerful. Think about this. If you speak English for 10 minutes every day, that's 70 minutes a week. That's over 300 minutes a month. That's thousands of minutes in a year. Now compare that to someone who practices once a week for 1 hour. Who will improve faster? The consistent one. Always. Because frequency matters more than intensity. Now here's something important. Consistency builds momentum, and momentum makes everything easier. At the beginning, it feels hard. You have to force yourself. You have to remind yourself. You have to push through resistance, but after a while, it becomes natural. You don't think about it anymore. You just do it. That's when progress accelerates, because now you are not fighting yourself. You are working with your habit. And habits are powerful. They remove the need for motivation. They remove excuses. They turn action into something automatic. That's why consistency is more important than motivation. Yeah, motivation is temporary. It comes and goes. But consistency stays. It carries you forward, even on your worst days. Now let's talk about another mistake. You expect fast results. You want to feel fluent in a few days. You want to see big changes quickly. And when that doesn't happen, you feel discouraged. You think, it's not working, and you stop. But fluency is not instant. It's gradual. Slow at first, then faster, then natural. You may not notice improvement every day, but if you stay consistent, you will notice it over time. Your sentences will become easier. Your pauses will become shorter. Your confidence will grow, not suddenly, but steadily. And that's real progress. Now, here's the mindset you need. Don't focus on results. Focus on the process. Instead of asking, am I fluent yet? Ask, did I practice today? Because if the answer is yes, you are moving forward, even if you don't feel it yet. Trust the process. Trust the repetition. Trust the time you are putting in. Because consistency always pays off. Always. Now let's make this practical. Create a simple daily system, not something complicated. Something you can follow every day. For example, speak for 5 to 10 minutes daily. Think in English during your routine. Repeat simple sentences out loud. Talk about your day before sleeping. That's it. Simple, but powerful. Because when you do this every day, you are building fluency step by step, and those steps add up. Now let's go deeper. Consistency is also about identity. Who are you becoming? Are you someone who tries sometimes, or someone who shows up every day? Because your identity shapes your actions, and your actions shape your results. So instead of saying, I want to become fluent, start saying, I am someone who practices English every day. That shift is powerful because now speaking is not something you try to do. It's something you are. And when something becomes part of who you are, you don't stop. You continue, no matter what. Finally, understand this. Fluency is not a talent. It's not a gift. It's not something only a few people can achieve. It's a result of consistent effort, daily practice, repeated action. So if you feel stuck right now, if you feel like you're not improving, don't change your goal. Don't give up. Change your consistency, because that is the real difference. The difference between someone who understands English and someone who speaks it fluently. One practices when they feel like it. The other practices no matter what. Be the second person. Show up. Every day, even when it's hard, even when it's boring, even when you don't see results. Because one day, you will. And when that day comes, you won't just understand English anymore. You will speak it. Naturally, confidently, effortlessly. Not because you were lucky, but because you were consistent. You started this video with a problem. You understand English, but you couldn't speak it. Now you know why. It was never about your intelligence. It was never about your memory. It was never about learning more. It was about your habits, your mindset, your approach. And now, you have a new one. You know that. You don't need to be perfect. You don't need to translate. You don't need complicated English. You just need to start. Start speaking. Start practicing. Start showing up every single day, even if it's slow, even if it's simple, even if it's not perfect. Because that's how fluency is built. Not in one day, but every day. So here's your decision. Will you stay silent, or will you finally start speaking? Because from this moment, you don't have an excuse anymore. You have a path. Now it's your move. Start today, and one day, very soon, you won't just understand English. You will speak it with confidence.